Happy Sunday. What if the secret to scaling your aesthetic or derm business isn't hiring more people, but retaining and developing the ones you already have? Today, I'm sharing 4 employee retention programs to help you leverage your intellectual property and avoid making decisions based out of fear that could hinder the growth of your business and your vision. Why this matters? The data shows us employees leave managers, they don't leave the company. So, the 4 strategies that we're going to talk about today, one of them you can call your wellness and training pipeline, offboarding to onboarding support, the first 90-day coaching program, entrepreneur startup mentorship, and then, of course, we'll round up by talking about legal guardrails and professionalism. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Dr. Kimberly Madison, a doctorally prepared nurse practitioner, and I am the founder of Mahogany Dermatology, Nursing Education and Research, where we're committed to increasing access to dermatology education, specifically when it comes to skin of color, business acumen, and digital fluency. I've been on social media for over 2 years, sharing my journey and answering your questions and building a community so that we can thrive as a practice and in specialty, but also in nursing, the field of nursing. And I think collectively, if we bring together our knowledge and our resources, we can really do something here. So I've missed you all. If you're new here, I have this YouTube channel, I have the Mahogany Dermatology blog, the Mahogany Dermatology shop. We have community for you with the DMB Dermatology MPPA group, our sister group, Derm MPs and PAs of Atlanta. And I think that's about it right now. So I drop these videos every Sunday at 12:15 a.m. Central on YouTube. And then the blog, every Monday we have a new article. And I'm supported by my intern, Jade Trevino. She's the Mahogany Dermatology Nurse Intern for the year. Caleb, Derek, and Allie, they help me run those networking groups I talked about. At the time that I'm filming this, let's see, I just shared with you my commencement speech. Congratulations to all the 2025 graduates. And yeah, I will get on once a month and do these batch content days where I film a whole bunch of episodes at once. It's my recommendation for those of you who are getting into social media. And we get into social media as entrepreneurs because it's free marketing. That's one part. The other part is the ability to increase that know, like, trust factor. People are not going to buy from you until they know who you are, like what you have to say, and trust that you are who you say you are. And so social media has been wonderful to me. And that's the reason why we're here today. So let's jump into our topic. Let's see. So I started talking about this maybe 2 weeks ago, I think. I talked about the first couple. And so today I'm revealing the whole plan. So we know, especially in aesthetics, it's not uncommon, even in dermatology, where someone's going to come and work for us and then want to go and start their own thing. Even in the social media space, especially in entrepreneurship, in entrepreneurism, when people get a glimpse of the freedom, maybe of the income you're able to make, it's very attractive, it's very appealing. And most of you typically try to go work for someone so you can learn the ropes, you can learn the practice, you can learn the business. That's not uncommon. Sometimes people do that for a little bit of time. Sometimes people do that for a long time. I know before, when I used to want to be a dentist, my plan was to work for someone who was kind of on the end of their career, maybe work for them for 5 or 10 years. And then when they were ready to retire, transition the business over to me. This is even before I really was, I would say, I'm not going to say I had a business mindset, because I've told you before, I had a business when I was a little kid, but I wasn't thinking about entrepreneurship the way I think about it now, because I didn't know it. I didn't know it had a name. But when I had that idea, I didn't know about entrepreneurship. But so we don't really see that as much anymore, where someone's plan is to work 5 to 10 years for someone and then transition out. Especially in nursing, we see you guys doing this for 6 months, a year, maybe 2 years, especially if you're signing a contract. And in dermatology on the med side, a lot of times those contracts can be anywhere from 1 to 3 years. And so as the employer, that can create a lot of fear that people are going to leave you, take your intellectual property. Even in social media, right? You hire people, you let them get close to your business. And it's really the only way to grow your business. Trust is a big part of this. And even recently I heard someone say, if you're afraid to let someone into your business is never going to grow. And so there are some guardrails you can put in place that we're going to talk about today to help alleviate some of that. But business is risky. This is a risky business. And yes, at some point you might get burned, right? That might be part of it. And you can only do what you can do and learn from it. And so today what we're talking about really is kind of acknowledging that these things are a reality, not letting fear prevent us from hiring our team so we can grow our business. And then trying to leverage that, right? If I know that you might leave and want to start your own thing, how can I benefit from that? Well, the first one is a wellness to transition pipeline. So, even though I love entrepreneurship and I think there's a value in it for everyone, as I talked about in my commencement speech, it's not for everyone, right? That's a reality. And actually, the longer I do this, I actually think that not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur or have a business. I think there's probably a good percentage of people who are in business right now, or who didn't really, especially in nursing, didn't necessarily want to be in business. And we kind of see this in the way they structure their business and the way they talk about how they invest their time, what they find valuable and worth investing their time. I think it's just because of the setting, and right, and their experience as an employee that has driven them to think this is my only other option, right? I would love to hear your feedback on that. And while we're talking about you giving me feedback, make sure you subscribe, leave a comment or two, share my channel with other people. So every time you do that, it lets the algorithm know that this information is important, so that when people like you look for information like this, I can show up higher in the search results. And that's information you can use for your own platform, right? And then that helps you leverage all the stuff that you're doing to monetize your content, to get brand deals and partnerships, increase your authority, becoming more of a subject matter expert. So many things can come from you showing up and being persistent and consistent. So since we know employees leave the manager or leader, not the company, and we know in nursing, burnout is a big thing. Last week in that commencement speech, I talked about high achievers. There's a lot of high achievers in nursing. A lot of us have type A personalities. And so we know that there are a lot of, and then there's also the business side of healthcare that we don't necessarily sign up for in the beginning. And then that disconnect between like patient care, humanity, and the business part of it that gets a lot of nurses, disappointed, right? In what you thought you were going to be doing and what you end up actually doing. And so that leads to a lot of dissatisfaction, sometimes depression, sadness. A lot of times work in isolation. That's lonely, and suffering in silence. And so, because we're suffering in silence, we're not always speaking up. And employees and students tend to think that if we speak up, it's going to hurt us. And in some cases, that has happened for some people. But again, you don't want to make decisions based out of fear. And as an employer, you don't want to create an environment or a culture where that's the majority of people's experience. And so the first thing you want to let your new hires know is, hey, look, we recognize these things exist in our industry. We're not going to pretend that there's something so special about us or my Medspa or my business that it might not happen here, right? We always want to make the assumption that we're as at risk as anybody else. Coming on board, these are the things we have in place. We understand the data. We understand the demands, especially, you can even be real about you, right? Look, I'm a startup. I have limited funds right now. I have a small clientele. We're going to be going through some growing pains over the next 6 months, couple of years. And if you're willing to work through that with us, we're willing to work with you. But we know that transition can be tough. We know you just finished being in school for 4 years. We know you just got married. We know you just had another baby. We know you have, 3 kids under 10 at home. We know that these things, we know you have sick parents. So we know that your risk factors for experiencing anxiety, depression, dissatisfaction. And so what we put in place is a wellness and transition pipeline. So we would love to hear from you before you leave us, right? And so if the time comes that you feel like, you know what, I'm not happy here, we want you to know that we have this policy where you let us know how you're feeling. And because we know you also don't want to leave, right? Everyone who has to start over, it's a big investment on both parts. Employers don't get back their investment on their NPs until about 6 months, and physicians about 9 months. And so it's a lot of time, it's a lot of money. I was talking to somebody yesterday who was preparing for an interview. We were talking about preparing for an interview, and we were talking about, let's say the base salary that the hiring manager has quoted you to say is 120. look, we know they're going to give you so let's say the range is 120 to 125. Coming in as the hiring manager, they're going to automatically say 120. They might say something because you're new, because you don't have experience, because we're new, because we have a small staff, because we have a low, whatever their reason is, right? Or whatever reasons you've given them. But always know when it comes to negotiation, everyone's going to come in at the low end. So you have wiggle room. Now, you might not be able to get 130 for obvious reasons, especially if it's a small startup, but they don't have the clientele or you don't meet the requirements. But you might be able to get the high end, right? And get closer to that 125. What I was telling them is, look, men have that kind of confidence, right? You have to have that too. And so when it comes to expressing your dissatisfaction or your need for something, you want your employees to feel comfortable to do that. And we know that by the time we've gone through all those interviews, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, credentialing, background checks, we've spent a lot of time investment. So you leaving, it hurts us, right? Now we're missing someone who was helping carry part of the workload. You, as the person who went through all that, now you're starting from scratch. So it benefits both of us to sit down at the table and talk about what's wrong and where we want to go, how we can get there. Now, it could be you as the employer, or you could have a middle person, right? It could be someone like, maybe depending on the hiring manager, the dynamics of everyone, it could be someone who does this, who kind of serves as the mediator. You can have outside counsel do this. And basically, one of the things you want to do is just have these regular check-ins where it's just about the person, not about their performance, not about their productivity, just about them as a person, their satisfaction, what they think is working, what they like about their schedule, the number of patients they're being given, billing, all the things that would make someone want to leave. Do a wellness evaluations. I'm sure there's some that exist online that are evidence-based, that are valid and proven. And you can reach out to your Psych and P friends. I'm sure they can help you. And we can always get ChatGPT to help customize it to meet the actual kind of environment that we work in terms of your business. And then a readiness assessment. These are some ways that you can really see where your employees are in terms of wellness. And then remember, you set the tone that supports their next chapter. Look, in nursing, we're always promoting people to continue their education and to grow, especially if you're an entrepreneur. You've already bought into the beauty of that, right? Your employees are going to see that. So some of them are going to get really close to that kind of dream and not want it, right? I don't think most people actually want a business, but some of them will come in, and if you make it really comfortable for them to share those dreams, it can benefit both of you. They're there to get experience and exposure, and you need help. You want a mentee, you want a mentor. And perhaps, even though it could go two ways, maybe they're coming in and they know for a fact they're going to go on and do their own thing, right? And that's okay. You know up front, you know how much to invest in. But what if their original dream is to go do their own thing, but after working with you and building a great rapport, they decide, you know what, I do want to go do my own thing, but maybe we just franchise your business, right? We franchise you out and I get to start with a ready-made model. Both of us benefit from that, right? And so we want to support people to continue to grow and to be able to share those dreams and desires with us, because we might be able to find something that benefits both of us. And yeah, so it could be internal promotion, right? You're hiring someone to see patients or clients, but maybe now that your business is growing, now you need someone who can serve as CFO or COO, or maybe you realize, I'm not really a visionary. I really like doing the thing. I like working in the business. So maybe you have one of those providers transition. They've already been working for you for a year or two. They already know the model. They've already invested. They've bought in, right? And believe in what you're selling. And now they want to, instead of hiring someone outside, you can literally hire an NP, right? And they can now take over that spot, and you can do the thing that you really love, which is still taking care of the patient. Remember, I've talked to you before, just because you own the business, it doesn't mean that you have to run the business. So you have to really ask yourself, do I really love running the business or doing the thing? Most nurses like doing the thing. I'm going to just go out on a limb and say that. And for myself, I recognize there's so much to learn in both roles that I had to ask myself, which one is more important to me and to invest the time in? And so I made that decision, right? And so for me, I'm the visionary. I'm the one who can sell the vision. So I need to be a master communicator and be able to take care of the people who carry out my vision and check in with them to make sure they're happy carrying out the vision and set them up for success to carry out the vision so that they continue to do it. Because the minute they stop and leave, it's on me. right? And I'm already doing all these other things. I really can't afford to lose them. And then, but for some people who I've talked to, they really like doing the thing. They're really still passionate about the art side of what we do. And so when I hear that, I say, okay, look, in your business plan, then at some point you're like, look, I'm going to hire someone. When I reach X amount of goals, right, whatever check marks you put in place, I'm going to step out of that role and get someone to step in, right, so the business can continue to grow. So that's with the wellness to transition pipeline. You have an employee who may not be that happy, and they're ready to transition either into a different position in your business or a different business role in a different company altogether. If you do that upfront when you hire them and you create that culture, you do these continual check-ins and make sure that everyone is still they're getting ahead of things, right? So this program, the structure, so you're going to, in the background, you're doing these check-ins, the wellness evaluations. You can be doing that every so often. But once someone says, I want to leave, and they want to kind of work a negotiation with you, you create this wellness to transition pipeline. And you set it up in a way that benefits both of you to keep them on. Say, hey, before you leave, let's do this 30-day transition, right? Because maybe something outside, some other stressors are impacting the way that they're experiencing work. And so maybe you can support them in that. Maybe they just need, maybe they need 30 days off, right? And what does that look like? What is that? Are they okay with 30 days, no pay? This is really a negotiation opportunity for you to come up with that. But this is kind of you getting ahead of it. So the second one is going to be offboarding to onboarding support. So this is the one I talked about before. I actually talked about the other one before too. So let's say this is a 30-day window. It could be 90 days, whatever your policy is on people telling you that they want to leave. So let's say Angela says, look, I want to move on. I've already found a job. These are the requirements. This is the employer. And I want to participate in your offboarding to onboarding support program. And so they're going to pay you for this, right? And what are you going to do? And the reason this is necessary is because everybody needs help and everybody has questions. And when you answer one question, they inevitably will always have another question. Someone's going to answer that question. It could be you. So in the program, this could be as hands-on or as hands-off as you want. So you're going to review their CV before they leave. This is in that last 30 days or whatever your window is, and give them actionable feedback, valuable advice from your employer perspective, right? And not only as the employer of a company, but you have very specific insight into them as an employee, what it was like to be their employee, what you heard from other staff, what you heard from the patients, and how you can use that feedback to help them really be more competitive for this other job that they're applying for. And so these can be verbal recommendations. And so maybe they haven't found a new person to work for, so you might have friends in the area who are hiring. You can give them recommendation. You can reach out and say, hey, look, and this is so when they sign up for this offboarding, onboarding support, this is a contract, right? They're paying you for this. They're signing a contract that if they get an interview, they're going to agree. They're paying you. It's up to them to make sure you get paid, either from them directly or the new employer. And we can lay out why that other employer would want to pay you. So the first thing they would pay you for would be an introductory fee. And you're going to be like, look, for the last 30 days, these were the things that we identified where this provider could improve. And for the last 30 days, these are the things that we worked on. And we've done an evaluation in the last 30 days, and this is the progress that we've made. And we highly recommend them for your company. These are their strengths. This is their weaknesses. This is the things that they'll be able to contribute to your company. These are the reviews that they had. Like, you're giving them a whole package, right? You kind of become your own recruiter. And you can delegate this to someone on your team. They're ready to go. We're going to give them time off to come and do the interview. We charge an introductory fee based on the 30 days of work we've just done, right? All that mentoring we've done to help create for you an employee who's ready to hit the ground running. If you decide to hire them, this is our referral fee, right? And everyone would agree and sign that, particularly the person who's your employee, because they're the ones who's buying into this. And so then it becomes, and you can help them. It's their responsibility to make sure that you get paid for both of those things. And you can do mock interviews. And if you're an entrepreneur listening, you can create these. This is something you can sell to other businesses, or you can come in kind of like a consultant and do it for them too, because you're already busy, right? I'm really not giving you ideas to make you more busy. I'm giving you ideas for your team or for other entrepreneurs to take on for you. And this will build goodwill and protect your brand. And so we already talked about the referral fees and that kind of thing. And you can pick how long this takes place. You can do this or delegate it. And you can do a combination of in-person, or maybe that you do a little, maybe sometimes you sit with them directly and look over their stuff and talk to them and do the interview. And maybe half of what you're doing is modules, right? They're going to take some modules to learn how to be a better communicator, learn more about productivity, how they can help increase revenue, how they can increase build their own social capital to bring in more clients. Whatever those benchmarks are that you were evaluating, you can have different modules that help them become stronger, and then have some quizzes at the end that evaluate their understanding and help reinforce the lessons. So it can be a lot of different ways. And if you're the entrepreneur creating this, you can make it really interactive. And then you can, including in your package, right, for the price that you're going to do, you can say you can get 30 days of access to these. You can say you get lifetime access. And, with each of those tiers, it can be a different price. So if you haven't already and you have heard something that piques your interest, let me know in the comments. You can either leave a question or give your own ideas or your concerns, right? I know innovative ideas always have a little bit of hesitation, right? Change is always, we resist that, right? So if you have questions, I would love to hear it. For me, feedback is golden. It helps me to strengthen what it is that I'm offering. So the next one is going to be your first 90-day coaching program. So this is after they leave. The other two were before they leave, right? So now they've moved on and now they're with a new employer. So we're assuming they found a job that they like, right? But they're still building rapport. They're still feeling their way around, and they need someone to lean on. You can offer and maybe you had a really positive relationship. Maybe they just had to relocate for family reasons or whatever. Right. So this is a positive relationship, especially if you start in the upfront when you're hiring them, letting them know that, look, I know that, it's inevitable. Some people will move on and leave, right? Especially all of you who promote that you have a family culture, everyone, you treat each other like family. Even when they move on, they should still be treated like family. And so this is mentorship you're going to provide after they leave to help them with their continual professional development. Just seeing the patient is only one aspect of professional development. There's still so many other things they can learn. They can learn from you, right? And you're already going to have that rapport to start off with. And so this can be as a retainer model, where it's like a monthly fee, and you can support them solely or a combination of emails, Zoom meetings, in person. It could be one-on-one. Maybe all the people who've ever left you are part of a community, or it could be group. It could be one-on-one, or it could be like a community support. And then just set really clear boundaries so everybody knows what's going on, the scope of the mentorship, what you are and aren't going to share. This will all be written down, and expectations on both parties, right? And how to end the agreement professionally when that time comes. So if it's a retainer model, they might be paying into this monthly. Because look, when they move on, they might need support both as a clinician, as a student, as a new business person. So many ways that you can offer support that they might want to utilize you for. Because they, at some point, even if it ends poorly, at some point you had everything they wanted, right? It's like dating, just because it ended, we kind of forget that at one point we really loved them. We were really attracted to them. It's the same thing with our staff. And so you do have something that they still find valuable, even if the relationship to work together under the same roof didn't work out. And so you just want to have it really clearly laid out in that contract how the agreement should end, whether it's month to month or some kind of notification period for whatever reason you would feel that is necessary. So this other one, this is a really fun one. This is your entrepreneur startup mentorship, right? Because I said at the top, some people are coming in because they want to learn the business, right? And so they want a blueprint from you. And so this could look so many ways, again, in person versus modules. And you could be giving them a blueprint, right? From the very get-go, right? You want to work, maybe it's a contract, right? You want help for 2 years. They sign the contract, and every month you make sure they get exposure to certain aspects of the business. And they can have them sign NDA, non-disclosure agreements, along the route. And yeah, they could be paying you for this. This is extra things they could be paying you for. It's better if they get their full pay and then they just pay you separately. This way things don't get murky. That'll be my recommendation. And the blueprint could be that combination of in-person, virtual, modules, ebooks, or PDFs. So many ways you can go about this. Apps. And then you just mentorship them, mentor them while they're working with you and once they move on, right? And that could go on for a really long time, and it can look up multiple ways. It could be monthly, it could be quarterly, twice a year, as needed. It could be that retainer model, particularly if you're in a state where if it's like an NP and they need or a PA, and they need a collaborating physician. It could just transition into that, right? Maybe do the mentorship and then just transition into the collaborating physician part or role, wherever you are. Yeah, and now that I'm talking, because I know there are some places where MPs are the medical director, but also if you're the employee, this episode is kind of catered to the employer, but if you're an employee and some of the situations I've described relate to you, you can pitch this to your employer and say, hey, I plan to stay here for the next 2 years while I finish work, getting through MP school. And when it's over, I would like to start my own business. And would you be willing to kind of mentor me for the next 2 years? I'll pay you each month to make sure that we hit certain milestones. And then, 90 days from when I plan to depart, I'll let you know. And then we can transition me out and I can help with hiring in the new person. Like you can pitch this any way you want. And then lastly, we have our legal and ethical guidelines. I already talked about using non-disclosure agreements so when you come up with whatever you're going to share, just make sure, think through to what degree you want to share information. And it can still be very valuable, even if you don't tell all the things, but if they work for you, they probably see quite a bit, except maybe not on the business side. And so that's where it's going to be really valuable to them to see that aspect. And so maybe you just figure out a way for them to get a lot of value out of that without sharing everything. But having things written down and looked over by a lawyer will be super helpful. Because look, you probably already have a lawyer, or you hire them this one time, but then you're going to be able to use it multiple times. So don't be afraid to make investments into your future. And but just make sure it's really valuable, right? Just like it's kind of like precepting. Make sure it's something they can really use and learn from, and use checkpoints to evaluate that they're understanding, right? Just like we do with our patients. And you could be using this to give them access to some of the tools that you use, your network, really kind of think outside the box on what you wish you would have had or that you did have when you started your business. And you can turn this into some publications, some journals, books, speaking. It could be a topic that you go out and do some public speaking, posters, podiums. You could turn into your social media content, right? You could sell these as templates, as your own coaching program. So many ways, things you could do from this little idea. And protect them too. Both parties need to be protected on both sides. So just have everything in writing and make sure everybody is in agreement. And then, of course, we have ethics. We always want to be ethical. So no poaching, no passive aggression, just partnership. And no fear. Don't let fear stop you. We started this episode by talking about that. Let me know in the comments, have you ever supported a past team member or been supported in the next phase of your journey? Why or why not, right? Remember, retention is super important. I talked before on the blog how I posted, I did a recap of the 2024 Physician and APP Incentives Report on the Mahogany Dermatology blog that showed us that employers are doing more to attract employees than we do to keep them. That's what inspired this whole episode. Because it shouldn't be that way. It's just like dating, right? We do so much more to win people. And then once we've got them, we tend to not do the same things that got us here. And, everyone kind of loses some time and money in the process of starting over. So you can check out that article. I'll try to remember to put it in the description box. Remember, your value is more than just the goods and services you're offering. It's your clients. It's your so it's more than this goods and services you're offering your clients. It extends to those closest to you, those who you trust to carry out your vision, right? So I always talk to you about that, about how to recognize your intellectual property when it comes to your clients, right? Your value. It's not just time you spent, but your intellectual property. But this is also for your employees, right? And so your business, your stems from your intellectual property. It's not just the Botox and filler and chemical peels and prescriptions that you write. It's you. You're the magic. You're the key, right? You're the magic. You're the magic. So remember, if you love this or feel more confident after building your own mentorship program, you can even call it a coaching program, whatever you want to call it, then check out my new playlist, the aesthetics for NPs and entrepreneurs. In the description box, I've linked information about my new book, Nursing Aesthetics, an Introductory Guide for Nurse Practitioner Entrepreneurs. Since I saw you, I've posted a few articles, including the best tinted sunscreens, NP approved. So in the article, I give you recommendations for tinted sunscreen, which I've already talked to you about, how important it is that we recommend tinted sunscreen for our skin of color patients because of the tinted ingredients in the sunscreen is which helps protect against visible light, which is one of the key contributors to skin of color patients developing hyperpigmentation, which is the number one thing we complain about, more so than the disease itself. So you always want to make sure you're addressing that for your patients, in addition to the thing that concerns you the most. And so I've already done one whole article on why dermatology NPs should be recommending tinted sunscreen. And then this latest one on a list of sunscreens, NP approved, NPs who attended the SDNP conference in California. I threw in a few of my favorites as well. And in there, we also talk about the implications of why this is important for nursing. We give you some ideas for your DNP projects, PhD nurse-led research, and our entrepreneurs. Because I tell you all the time, just because you take care of patients doesn't mean your business has to take care of patients. So we're giving you ideas all the time about what that could look like for you. And in that case, it really comes down to, do you need another degree? Do you need to go back to NP school, which is actually the topic of our next video. I invite you to come back for that. I haven't given you health updates for a few videos, so we'll do that and then we'll close out. Since I saw you, I've been still biking in all this heat, which I love, but my skin doesn't love it. But I got a new bike, and so that's been really fun. And then I tapped into a community that I'm a part of here to get recommendations for a therapist and a women's health provider. So they did give me those recommendations, and now I just have to check them out and see if they are covered by my insurance. So the next time you see me, I should have scheduled appointments. And then next month when I go home, I still have my mammogram scheduled, which I scheduled like 3 months ago. And so that's still on the radar. But yeah, and then the other thing I've been doing is working on having more of a schedule, right? Certain days I do certain things, and certain times of the day I do certain things. When it comes to my business, we finished Your Biggest Launch Ever. And so remember, she sold it as being an 8-week program, but once we got inside, we found out it was 10 weeks. And then not only that, after the official 10 weeks ends, which where we have like weekly sessions, we get another 10 weeks of access to the community. So that's where we're at now. We're in that second 10 weeks, and still her team still answers all of our questions. Most of my questions have been around the legal aspects, but I still have my accountability groups. Actually, I started 2 new ones. One lady in New Zealand, also in the beauty industry. We meet every day, well, during the week. And she has a 10-minute framework, and we just go through those questions. Sometimes it works. We're both very busy, so sometimes we can do it live at the same time, but sometimes we have to just send in our video, and we use WhatsApp for that, and that's been working out wonderfully. And then another lady, we're only going to meet once a week, but she's also been in the beauty industry for I think she said 25 years. And what I love about her story is, especially as an entrepreneur, you can always feel like you're not doing enough. I don't think that ever goes away. And the idea of what I talked about in the commencement speech is there's always things to do. It doesn't end. That's what that horizon is. There's no end. So you have to create the boundaries. You have to stop and pause and appreciate where you are. And so one thing I like about this lady, because I can feel I didn't do this, I didn't do that. And it can be overwhelming and also frustrating. I'm not doing enough. I'm not getting far enough. But what I love about her is she only really has realistically 20 days and 20 minutes to work on her business a day. And it adds up, it's more than nothing. And it's so realistic, right? It's almost like working out. It's like you can find a million reasons not to do it, but you can also say, you know what? It's just 20 minutes. Let me just sit down and do this thing. So I hope it encourages you, I hope it inspires you, because that's one thing that stops us from taking action is we'll be like, I just don't have enough time. But I think can't you find 20 minutes a day to work on your dream? So I thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.